This started as a 3D print and I turned it into a cement dish. No layer lines and no sanding required. Here's how I did it step by step. I found this service called Womp 3D. They 3D print your designs using a special prototyping resin that's supposed to be super smooth with no layer lines. I uploaded my 3D design and sent in my trinket dish for printing. The print just arrived, so let's unbox it. Womp 3D is based out of Canada, so it did take about 2 weeks to arrive, including the production time. I'm based in the US, and I thought it was pretty quick considering they're printing and prepping your piece. If you've ever sanded a 3D print before, you know how much work it takes to sand a smooth print. So if this is as smooth as they say, it's going to be a huge time saver. Here it is straight out of the box. This looks exactly how it did online.
Wow, look how this came out.
On the bottom are 2 tiny escape holes for the air to release during the printing process. The piece is hollow inside, so it is pretty lightweight. Now I'm ready to seal the 3D print. I grabbed a pair of bamboo racks to prop the piece on. My favorite glaze to use for this is the Krylon clear glaze. I'm going to start with the bottom side facing up first. I prefer spraying from side to side while going around the piece. I'm going to do 4 coats on the bottom and 4 coats on the top. This stuff dries pretty quickly, so you only have to wait about 5 to 10 minutes between coats. Once I finish sealing the bottom, I like to wait about 30 minutes to fully let it dry so it doesn't stick to the racks. Now I'm going to do the same thing and glaze the top 4 times. After the 4th coat, I brought it inside to dry for 24 hours. Here it is the next morning. It's crazy to think that within 24 hours, this piece is ready for the mold making process. Here it is up close. The piece has to be sealed or the silicone won't cure correctly and hot glue won't stick to the bottom.
This will interlock right here.
I grabbed this PVC sheet, which will be the flat base for the mold. I'm going to start preheating the glue gun. I found these extra long glue sticks for like $3 at Hobby Lobby. I'm removing the film that came on this sheet. It's basically just a clear sheet of plastic. I just hope the silicone or hot glue doesn't stick to this. I placed my 3D printed housing I made on the sheet and got some small binder clips. This will keep the housing tight and hopefully leak proof. This dish is 8 inches by 8 inches, so I added an additional inch to the housing so there's a 1/2 inch gap all around. Flip your piece and be careful not to add any fingerprints. Now add hot glue to the bottom. I'm going to just do a thin ring of glue so I can flatten it down, and I'm going to press it down with my forearm so I don't add any prints. Now I'm going to just start hot gluing the housing to the base. I also made sure to add a little bit of glue to the cracks where the binder clips were placed. I'm adding a few more layers of glue just in case. I'm going to be mixing a lot of silicone for this, so it would be a disaster if it leaked. Now it's time to prep the silicone. I'm going to be using Let's Resin silicone rubber. This silicone uses a 1-to-1 ratio, so you're going to want to mix by weight. I had no clue in the moment on how to figure out how much silicone to mix, so I just guesstimated. I've been told I can put rice in it and pour it out or possibly use water, but I didn't really feel like doing that. So I just eyeballed it and it's always seemed to work in my favor. I measured out 2 pounds of part A and 2 pounds of part B. I love using the silicone because it cures translucent clear and it matches the rest of my molds. And also I've never had to use mold release spray on it either. Once you've mixed in your part B, you're going to want to stir slowly but thoroughly for at least 3 to 5 minutes to ensure the 2 parts are fully combined. Since I'm mixing a larger amount, I'm going to mix for 6 minutes. You want to avoid whipping air into the mix, but don't worry too much because the silicone is self-gassing, so the bubbles will pop by themselves. If you see streaks or unmixed material on the sides of the bucket, scrape them in and keep stirring. It has a work time of about 30 minutes and it cures in 6 hours at room temp. If you don't mix it well enough, you might get soft or sticky spots in your mold and it won't be usable. Now the silicone's ready to pour. I like to pour from one spot and let it flow naturally around the dish. This helps prevent bubbles from getting trapped. When making the housing, I made sure to leave a 1/2 inch gap at the top. I'm making sure to pour enough silicone to fully cover the piece with a thick layer. By the looks of it, it looks like I eyeballed it correctly. It takes 4 pounds of silicone to make this dish. Here it is all poured to the very top. At this point, I have my eyes glued to this for the next hour to make sure that there's no leaks. And if you look really closely, you can see the tiny little bubbles popping on their own. It's been about 4 hours since I posted this, and this is what the mold is looking like so far. 9 hours have passed, and I'm ready to demold this. I'm starting with removing the clips, and then I have to remove the hot glue. When I tried to lift up the glue, you guys, I realized it was stuck. I tried using the metal backing of a measuring cup. I tried my fingers, but it felt impossible. I started trying to bend the sheet to loosen the mold. I needed to try to pump some air bubbles in there, so I started bending all the edges, and you can see it started working. I almost gave up when I decided I was just gonna try to break it free. Y'all see that? It's coming out. I don't want to put anything in here and mess up the mold housing, so I'm trying not to stick anything through, but y'all, at this point, my arms were so tired, but I finally got it free. I'm honestly surprised I didn't break or crack that sheet. It wasn't until after I learned that you just need some rubbing alcohol to remove the glue. It loosens up the glue and it peels right up. Now I have to trim the mold. I'm going to be using these small detailing scissors. I thought I had trimmed enough, but the hole was too small, so I trimmed another layer off so I could squeeze the piece out. Silence. And after all that, here's the original piece out with no marks and ready to be used again. You can see the silicone flashing here. I'm just going to trim that up and cut it in line with the shape of the piece.
Wow.
I also used a nail cuticle remover to clean up the edges and the seam line. And you guys, here is the finished mold. It came out exactly how I'd imagined. You can also see the Sienna Studios embossing on the side. It blends in seamlessly so it doesn't look too branded. All that's left to do is pour a batch of our moss green cement. If you're interested in this moss green pigment, I'll have it linked in the description. It's available in a 100-gram sample jar or a 500-gram bag. I also have a cement recipe e-guide that has our ratio for water to cement if you're interested. It also includes the exact cement we use. I'm using this funnel to help direct the flow of cement while also keeping bubbles from forming. Once I'm done pouring, I'm going to let it sit for 3 hours. 3 hours later, the first piece is ready to demold. Here's the first cement piece. Now I'm going to wait 3 days before I seal it up. I'm going to be sealing it with our low gloss acrylic sealer. This will make the cement piece non-toxic and food safe once it's cured. I just let the excess drip off and wipe the rest, leaving a thin layer. I'm wiping it with a microfiber cloth because I feel like it's the best way to leave a thin layer. After doing a few coats on the front and back, the piece is finally finished. Here it is all styled.